We chose to do this as a webinar format in Zoom. Many of you are probably used to meeting format, and that may have been more appropriate for the discussion part of this session. If you're really keen to have your video and audio shared, please just send a note to my colleague Sam Sidlowski, and she could upgrade you to panelist, and then we'd be able to see you and hear you. Otherwise, we welcome you to put your questions to our high performance builders and energy advisor Rod in the Q&A chat box. That makes it easier to track those questions and see what we have answered and have not. And any just general chat, if you want to talk to your fellow participants or give helpful hints or put links in, welcome to do that in the general chat box. My name is Gaytan Kerrigan. I work with Community Energy Association. This webinar is being brought to you by the Building a Legacy North initiative, which is a collaboration between Canadian Home Builders Association of Northern BC and Community Energy Association with funding from BC Hydro. So today, I'm going to do the welcome and introduction to step code and bring everybody up to just the basics on that. We're going to get to have a treat, talk to 3 high performance builders who are here with us today. Also, we have an energy advisor based in Prince George, Rod Kroom, and we're going to talk about what it takes to work with an energy advisor, which is going to be required with step code. And then there should be plenty of time for discussion as well. Just as we go along, if you'd like to put your questions in that question and answer chat box, I welcome you to do so, and we don't have to keep questions and discussion to the end. We can just do that as we go. If you'd like in the chat to put your name, what local government you're from, and the role, please do that now. So before we get too far into things, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. I'm calling in from Fernie, BC in the East Kootenay, which is the Ktunaxa Amakas, the traditional territory of the Ktunaxa First Nation. If you don't know where you might be sitting, you can look at native-land.ca, and that is a resource all across Turtle Island, across North America, that looks at the traditional territories of the many Indigenous people that lived here now. So I just want to do a reading from a book called You Are the Medicine. It's Tasha Frost wrote this book. She's an Ojibwe healer. As you acknowledge the earth beneath your feet, feel the spirit of the land and all it carries, for it has witnessed lifetimes of both beauty and pain. Land acknowledgements remind everyone of the truth that we, Indigenous people, are still here. When spoken with intention, the words remind all who listen that no one can erase our colonial and oppressive history. As Indigenous people, we place ourselves in relationship to the land. We don't own it, we have kinship with it. When we speak these words, we acknowledge the broken treaties and the repair that's needed. Land acknowledgements are so much more than words spoken. They create ripples of healing, past, present, and future. So today we're going to get to hear from Terry McConaughey, Executive Officer of CHBA Northern BC, and this was her brainchild. She is also a counselor in Prince George. And she said, you know what I really like? I like it when people come to me on my lunch hour. I can eat my lunch, I can learn something, and then I can make better decisions for my community. So thank you to Terry for having the idea for this session. We're also going to hear from Nathan Sorella, local contractors based out of Prince George. He's going to tell us about his net zero build. Bruce Kidd of Kidd Group Prince George, talking about how he's been incorporating energy efficiency and using an energy advisor. Joe Hart, Icon Homes in Quesnel. Similar discussion. All of these lovely gentlemen, including Rod Kroom, Home Tech Energy Solutions, who's an energy advisor, have been talking to the builders and contractors over the last 3 sessions, and there's one more this afternoon, talking to the industry throughout the region about step code and what it's going to mean and how that's going to change things a little bit. And then myself, I'm Gaytan Kerrigan. I'm a resilience specialist based out of Fernie, and the reason I get to be here with you today is because I work with Community Energy Association, We're a nonprofit that supports local governments and Indigenous communities on climate and energy activities. So as you all know, local governments, the main areas that they can influence for climate action and emissions profiles and things in your communities, it comes down to transportation, it comes down to waste and buildings. And so today we're talking about implementing this buildings project in new construction. Step Code is all about new construction. The other side of that, of course, is deep energy retrofits, but that will be talked at perhaps another session in the future. So CA membership and staff. So here's a map of all of the different members we have around the province. In the north, Prince Rupert, New Hazelton, Grand Isle, Burns Lake, Prince George are all local governments that are members with us. And the map on the right is where we're all distributed across the province. We also have another member in Ottawa, and then we're also expanding into Alberta right now. So climate change and the decade of climate action is hot, and we need more people to work on these projects with us. I'm going to turn it over quickly to my colleague, Maj Horovik, who is the co-chair of the Step Code peer network and also does something with CLI, and I can never remember the acronyms.
Thanks, Gaetan. Yeah, so I wear a couple hats with CEA as the Director of Climate Leadership, and some of you are familiar to me here as elected officials across the province. So just a quick plug I wanted to give to you folks, since it is a lot of elected folks on the line today, is for the BC Climate Leaders program, and I'll put the link in the chat shortly. That is a program that's part of the BC Municipal Climate Leadership Council, or BCMCLC. We have the Climate Leaders Playbook, a coaching offering for elected officials on climate action, as well as an upcoming 3-day event in the Lower Mainland called the Climate Leaders Institute. And all of that information is online. And I will also put my email address in if you are running again next term and want to get involved in like a northern cluster of elected officials. Please let me know, because that's something upcoming as well. And I'd really love to just hear from you and what your needs are as you move forward on your local climate commitments. Back to you, Gaetan.
Great. Thank you, Maya. So why am I here helping out with Step Code in the north? So in the before times, before COVID, before the pandemic, I was working a lot on in-person events in the East Kootenay. So building capacity with builders, with building officials, with realtors, talking to suppliers, helping local governments here in this region implement Step Code before it becomes mandatory at the end of 2022. And why were we doing that? Well, early implementation provides an opportunity for the incentives and the education and just general familiarity with the process before it's required. It's also a signal to market. So one of the big issues that we saw a lot coming up and concern in the north when we started this project in 2021 was energy advisor capacity. We're going to talk about that later in the presentation, but we'll see that that's largely been resolved with a lot more energy advisors coming into the region and being trained up, and some other remote solutions as well. And then, of course, when we prioritize energy efficiency and make that a requirement, we have better homes sooner for residents, and the quality of our building stock just improves overall. So I've mentioned this Building a Legacy North project initiative a few times. What's it mean for local government? So we're here to support local government and industry. We've created this customized website that has everything to do with northern context. Myself and my colleagues, we can help local governments. We can draft bylaw text and provide website content. We can provide graphics. We do council presentations, and some of you may have seen me or some of my colleagues presenting to your councils already. We have, with COVID, we had to pivot, obviously, like everyone else, and we started providing our education and training through recorded webinars. And so now we have a library of webinars related to Step Code that are highly technical, provided by really top quality instructors that are all available there for the taking. We also have several cold climate case studies and a technical booklet, lots of resources specifically geared towards the north. And then we also, one of the things that we did was introduce a Northern Step Code Acceleration Fund. So we talked to your staff and building officials and said, okay, what are the barriers that you're experiencing and how might we help with that in a tangible way? And so, for example, the city of Terrace said, we're concerned that we don't have blower door test equipment here. Prince George is far away from Terrace and we don't have the equipment to do those air tightness tests. Could you please help us with that? So with Terrace, we did a cost share where we paid for 80% of blower door test equipment that they have now available for use, and that is can be shared around the region. So quickly, just to bring everyone up to speed on the basics of step code and show you that this is a resource that you too could put on your municipal websites. I'd like to take a look at a 4-minute video about what step code is. I'm going to go to the Building a Legacy North website. Sam knows that I'm really concentrated on running the ship right here. So if there's something in the chat, Sam, that needs my attention and I'm not paying attention to it, please just tell me out loud. That would be great. So this is the Building a Legacy North website. All of the upcoming events and things we'll be able to post here. This is the video that I'm going to show is right here in a minute. And we have a case study from the Prince George Hospice Society that Rob Van Adrikim, my new colleague in Prince George, helped us create. Then as we go down, we have for industry and local government. So here's that library of recorded webinars that I mentioned, all of these cold climate case studies, how to work with an energy advisor, the technical specifications of the different options that the builders are going to have, whether how they decide to build their roof and wall assemblies are up to them, and what are the pros and cons of those different ways of doing that. Incentive programs and other step code resources. We also have this Northern Step Code dashboard. I invite you to get on here. And so, for example, the Regional District of Fraser Fort George was the very first Northern government that adopted step code as of April 1st. Step 1 of Part 9 and Part 3 are required. And I also know that Prince George followed suit, and as of September 1st, step code will be required. Step 1 in Prince George. So let's go back to this video and take a look at what all this means.
This is a net zero ready home. It costs less to heat and cool, and it's ready to supply its own energy needs in the future. By 2032, all new houses built in British Columbia will be like this home, which is approximately 80% more efficient than those built to the current 2018 BC Building Code. In 2022, houses will need to be 20% more energy efficient than those built to meet the requirements of the 2018 BC Building Code. By 2027, 5 years later, the requirements will increase again, and houses will need to be 40% more efficient than the current code. To prepare industry and local governments for this progression, the province of BC has introduced a clear pathway called the BC Energy Step Code that aligns with the Clean BC strategy released in 2018. Here's how a single-family Part 9 home is built to the BC Energy Step Code. All steps of this standard encourage the involvement of an energy advisor and require energy modeling, starting at the design phase of a new build. The energy model guides the air tightness, heating needs, and mechanical efficiency required to meet a certain step of the Energy Step Code. The requirements vary by the different climate zones of the province. To help builders in every zone achieve energy efficiency that matches their context, the Energy Step Code adjusts to local climate. This is important because a home in Prince George may require different solutions than one in Vancouver, and a home in Kelowna may have different needs than one in Kimberley. Let's look at the steps. Step 1 requires an energy model, but the required energy performance is equivalent to the 2018 BC Building Code. The middle steps, steps 2 and 3, require higher energy performance than the 2018 BC Building Code. To achieve these steps, building, design, and trades professionals can often rely on conventional building techniques with careful air sealing practices. They should collaborate with their energy advisor at the design phase to select the most cost-effective way to meet the requirements. For Part 9 buildings, Step 4 marks the beginning of the upper steps. To achieve the upper steps, builders and designers will need to adopt a more integrated approach and may need to incorporate more substantial changes in the building design, layout, framing techniques, mechanical system selection, and materials. Remember, by 2027, about 40% greater efficiency over the 2018 BC Building Code will be required province-wide. The top step in the BC Energy Step Code equates to a net zero energy ready building, which is up to 80% more energy efficient than today's typical new building. To deliver on these new requirements, builders in British Columbia will need to refresh their skills and take a fully holistic approach to each project. The BC Energy Step Code will bring 3 key changes to the building process. 1. Involving an energy advisor and conducting energy modeling for every build. 2. Testing air tightness and achieving minimum performance levels. And 3. Using the performance pathway to achieve energy targets through performance measures instead of prescriptive requirements that were commonly relied upon previously. Everyone, builders, local governments, and clients, can benefit from knowing how the new buildings stack up because of the performance measures built into the standard. Meanwhile, BC's buildings will become more comfortable, energy efficient, lower cost to run, and contribute to a low-carbon, climate-wise future. There are a number of resources available about the BC Energy Step Code. To learn more, visit energystepcode.ca.
Sorry to cut the music short there. You're probably rocking out. I mentioned that one of the ways that we can support local governments through the Building a Legacy North initiative is providing some content for websites. And so this is just the Regional District of Fraser Fort George's website. I provided a lot of the content which they customized for themselves, that whatever made sense for themselves, they were able to add in that little video, some of the graphics. So just to let you know, this is something that is available for some support. And going back to my slides, welcome Megan Lohman, another colleague at Community Energy Association. So here is that regulatory pathway again that we just saw in the video that lets us know that at the end of December, 20% better than current code is going to be required. And something I've heard from a building official in Kimberley a lot, Andy Christie, when he talks about building code, he says, that is the worst house that you are allowed to legally build. That is what building code is. It's not aspirational. And we know that builders in cold climates, we find this in the East Kootenay, but even more so in the northern climates, are typically already building to a higher standard than building code, because if they weren't, their clients would know it would be an uncomfortable, expensive to heat house. And so there's been several case studies now with builders that are starting to do the energy modeling for the first time in the north. And they are pleasantly surprised to find out that, hey, they're probably already meeting at least step 2. And with a few minor modifications, they easily hit step 3. And we're going to have the builders talk about that in a moment. But just to let you know, chances are the builders in your communities are already doing this. They just might not know it yet. So what are the tangible next steps for any local government that wants to adopt step code at maybe a lower step, maybe step 1, just to get the ball rolling before the mandatory step 3 provincial mandate? So there's one small form to fill out called it's the notification to the province. That's available on the provincial step code website. You your mayor and council, you adopt a timeline for step 1 or step 2 before December 2022. So just like the regional district of Fraser Fort George that did April 1st, Prince George that just did September 1st, you could do that. And then you put out your new building bylaw. And of course, a lot of communities throughout the province have already done this. There's lots of building bylaws that you can take a look at and copy those and just make it your own, but that wording is already available. And that's another thing that Community Energy Association can help you with. And with that, let's get into the builder best practices. I don't know if Terry's here yet, but if she isn't, I'm just going to take her part.
I am.
You are, oh, great.
I'm right underneath you. Good tan.
You keep being in Zoom prison and giving me a heart attack.
I
So
know,
welcome.
right? Giving you kittens. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. And Gatan, I think what you just said is really, really important for folks that are responsible for making decisions at the table in their communities need to know is that the pathway to achieving step 3 in construction is not difficult. In fact, the majority of our builders in our areas in northern BC, due to our climate zone, are already there. They just didn't know it. And with some tweaks, step 3 is not unachievable. And how we found out about this is that in advance, when we saw that the BC Energy Step Code was coming down the pipe, we wanted to look as an association at how we can best support our builders to getting there. So with funding from BC Hydro, BC Housing, and Fortis BC, we were able to run round 1 of 10 builders and connect them with an energy advisor and have that opportunity to work through the process of planning, energy modeling to mid-construction airtightness, final airtightness, in addition to sourcing any of the incentives that are out there and applying for any labels if appropriate. And so one of the key findings is that thanks to our northern climate, a lot of our builders, they found that they're already there. So that was definitely a key takeaway. Another thing with our partnership with the Community Energy Association and Building a Legacy North, we were also able to take that information and identify any of the gaps and address any of the concerns. And one of those was to create a call to action for more energy advisors. So it's been a great opportunity to make sure that, contractors, building officials, and now decision makers, that we're all going in the right direction so that our industry as a whole and our end user, homeowners, and our citizens are all going to be where they need to be when step 3 is enacted at the end of this year. I think I've got that all covered. Oh yeah, here's some of our, thank you, Gatan. Here's some of our builder comments. Exactly. So this really kind of does showcase some of the outcomes. Working with an energy advisor as soon as possible, that there's minor changes, not a huge cost increase to achieving step 3. That as some builders, you'll hear from one, Bruce Kidd, he always works with an EA now, even before he had to. And as much as I know Bruce, he likes to, test the rules. And here he is following the rules well in advance, as are many of our other builders. So it's really not that scary, I think, was the takeaway. Thanks for that, Gatan.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So one of the case studies that CHBA North did last year was on the hospice dream home. And we took that and ran with that. Rob Van Andrekum saw an opportunity and wanted to make a little video about that. So I'm going to play that now. If I can find the right window here. My goodness. Okay, so we're going to go to Building a Legacy North. And that's where we're going to find it. With a cameo appearance by another energy advisor that's based in Prince George, Alison Conroy. My computer's struggling with all the things I have open.
BC is implementing new changes to the building code that will make new buildings much more energy efficient over the next decade. To see what this means for new homes being built today,
Sorry, I'm going to check. Is that full screen for you guys, or is it just a little tiny corner? Ridiculous.
It's just a corner to 10.
Okay, I'm going to let this go like Elsa, but you guys know where to find that.
Yeah, no, it's a great video.
There we go.
It's loaded now, it looks like.
Okay, here we are.
we visited one of Prince George's most famous new homes, the Hospice Society Dream Home. BC is in the early days of a transition called the Energy Step Code, which outlines 5 steps for making buildings more energy efficient. The final step, which would result in a home that's 80% more energy efficient than today's building code, will be required by 2032. But between now and then, each step is improving energy efficiency, all guided by an energy advisor. The Hospice Dream Home has been built to step 3, which is actually better than the current requirements. New homes built after 2022 will be required to perform at step 3.
So this house uses 39% less energy than a code minimum built house today. They have more insulation in the walls than a typical house might. The mechanical systems are quite energy efficient. The windows are good, are well performing, which just gives the house, I think, for the consumer, the buyer, the occupant, a greater comfort, both thermally, acoustically. This house, the indoor air quality is good, makes for a more comfortable setting for the occupants. But then that also translates into monthly and annual cost savings of the performance of the house, the heating, operation of the heating system and all of the mechanical equipment that's in the house. So there's lots of benefits to having built that house to a higher performance and meeting those targets of the step code. So overall, this house, it's estimated that it'll save just under $400 annually on their fuel and energy bills for the house, which is actually the equivalent of 2.5 tons of greenhouse gas emissions annually as well. Builders primarily, but now consumers are becoming much more aware of what it feels like to live or to be in a comfortable house.
Starting all the way from your foundation, you're thinking about efficiency, how you're gonna do the walls in your house, how you're gonna insulate the walls. Starting from all the way back there, and it goes all the way to the end when you're moving in, how you're gonna keep that efficiency high. So,
Where do you see this going?
efficiency, I think efficiency is gonna be the new normal for all of us.
Stay informed about the Energy Step Code and learn what it means for home builders as well as for home buyers. The Community Energy Association is partnering with the Canadian Home Builders Association to provide training and stories of success. Check us out online and keep in touch.
All right. So now let's hear it from the builders themselves. We've got Nathan and Bruce and Joe. Nathan, we're going to start with you.
Sure.
Local contractors. Can you tell us a little bit about this house that you did?
Yeah, so this was our first net zero ready home. We worked with Rod Kroom on this one. He was our EA, and the homeowners had already designed this home with Angel Heinrich and worked with Rod prior to us being involved. So a lot of the legwork had been done ahead of time, and they just picked us as a contractor to put it all together. So we did some minor modifications. Well, not minor, actually. We modified the plan from the beginning. Originally, it was supposed to be a bib system, insulated, double wall insulated home, and we changed that just because it was hard to get some materials, as you guys know, and with the pandemic, and material pricing changed quite a bit. So therefore, we had to adapt quite a bit with this home. Luckily, we managed to make it all happen and for an affordable price too. So net zero homes aren't the crazy, unaffordable, hyper efficient homes that everybody always thinks they are. This was actually not far off what a custom home would have cost had it not been net zero. So
Great.
So this is just a couple slides of some weak spots that we'd found. So in the previous webinar here, we talked about communication with subtrades being the absolute most important thing when you want to tackle one of these projects. So those 3 pipes you're seeing there were those are the solar rough-ins. Those were placed in through the garage, and they weren't really, we weren't aware as a general contractor that those had been placed in right before our mid construction blower door test. So we thought we'd gotten every penetration, but as you can see, we had to put some silicone around those to, once we found the air leaks really start to pop up when Rod threw the blower door on. So with that 50 pascals of air pressure, you can actually feel it, right? The air on your hands. It's you don't really need a thermal camera all the time like we have in the middle picture there. They're very handy to see where your thermal losses are and some of your airflow. But if you just go around with your hand, usually you can find any air leakage that's going to be a problem. And then there's the right slide there. I was just showing that Tyvek was our air barrier on the outside, but it wasn't our primary air barrier. So when you're planning these things out, you need to decide where you want your air barrier primarily to be. It can be in the inside or the outside. So with the double wall system that we had, it's about a 12-inch cavity or 11 inches, I think it worked out to be. We decided we got a good deal on spray foam at the time. I don't know what it is now, but things change. And the homeowners wanted spray foam over top of the bib system because they had heard some horror stories down the road of settling and things like that, which I know is not always the case. There's good bib system installers out there that you won't get that problem, but they were shied away from that. So we went with 1/2 pound spray foam. And with the mid blower door test or mid construction blower door tests, we achieved net zero without drywall on the walls or any kind of vapor barrier. And the interior was going to be our main air seal. So just with the spray foam on there, drywall on the ceiling, we were able to get 1.5 air exchange. So just goes to show you, Tyvek isn't always needed to be your primary air barrier. It does help, and you do want to apply that properly and do all your outside air seals properly because they will help you, but they're not totally necessary if you plan things properly. So
Okay, thanks, Nathan. This can you talk a little bit about this mechanical room? It looks like the Starship Enterprise a little bit.
Yeah. So there's a ton of mechanical equipment that goes into high performance homes. That's an ERV that you see on the far left there. And that's just a slightly different unit from an HRV in that it just recycles moisture from the air and gives you a lot more comfortable of a home. And from what we've been hearing from mechanical contractors around our region is ERVs are the preferred product over an HRV. I'm not a mechanical engineer by any means, but I listen to the professionals when they recommend that stuff, and it's been working really well. That's by far the most comfortable house I've ever been in, for sure, as far as air quality and hydronic piping throughout the floor systems is very comfortable as well. So so what we have here, it doesn't show the air source heat pump, but we have an Arctic heat pump air to water hydronic system. So there's a lot of components that need to go in there, and they need to go in there correctly, and you need to be able to access them easily. You need to be able to label them and trace them if there's any problems. So planning your mechanical room is a good idea for sure, because you're going to want all your HVAC located in a separate place from your plumbing and from your electrical, so your subcontractors aren't stepping on top of each other if they need to work on something. So this is just kind of how we like to do our mechanical rooms if we had a choice. It's neat and tidy, and you got to be in there a lot. It's going to be your favorite place of a high performance home.
Okay, beautiful. So I'm hearing lots of upfront communication and some thoughtfulness being put into the design before you ever get rolling.
Yeah, for sure. Planning is key for these homes. If you got a good plan, there's nothing to worry about.
Okay. Bruce, can I hear a little bit about your homes and your process of working with an energy advisor?
So we started into this program at the start. We were one of the first builders to be asked to work with an energy advisor with some funding that you guys provided. It was we were pleasant to see that our houses predominantly we're spec builder. We build about 12 houses a year, and then a couple custom houses, and then maybe a commercial job here and there. This was one of our spec houses. It's a 2-story house. Originally, it scored step 2 with a score there on the energy code. What happened? We actually ended up just concentrating a little bit more on our our insulation, our acoustic, and our ceiling around our box joists. So we eventually we figured that the box joist is where we were losing most of our air tightness. So we ended up going to a spray foam system in our box joists, which has contributed to a really low score. Typically, our houses are on the air tightness. This house here, I think Rod's got it, one we just recently did, same style house, scored 1.2 now on the air tightness, which is above step 5. And most of our houses are scoring between 1 and 1.5, depending on the house design. Another house design that we tested as well, that we built quite a bit here in Prince George, scored step 4 right out of the box. We never had to do anything. We never changed nothing, period. It just said scored step 4 right away. It's an ICF foundation, 1.5 stories. So that's what contributed to that. So it was, I think most of the houses being built in Prince George are already in the step 3 without having to do anything. And, obviously some are already in step 4. So to make that move from step 4 to step 5 isn't going to be that big of a deal as far as I'm concerned. So we were really pleasantly surprised. It was a good experience. Rod's really knowledgeable. We send him a plan when we start. If it's a new plan that we haven't done before, he gives us some ideas. He's just planning out one in Sabinal that we're doing, which will be net zero. And so, he gave us some suggestions on the plan, triple glazed windows, and then we're able to build it to that plan.
It sounds like after you figured out maybe some of the weaker spots, you figured that out and didn't change much besides tighten up your air tightness. And
yeah, we went from R22 in the walls, which is code, to R24, which helped. And then sometimes we added insulation. If it was a slab on grade, we added insulation underneath the slab on grade, depending on how the house was going to score. But now I think we're pretty much just the air tightness is where we really concentrated on it. And the spray foam made a huge difference in those box joists, because those are predominantly really hard to seal up, especially if you're using a 2x4 floor truss or anything like that.
Okay, thanks so much, Bruce. Mr. Hart, you want to tell us a little bit about your home and how you do things?
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. So this is my own home. This was our first attempt at a high performance home. And what I've discovered over our journey, we've done a couple of net zero certified homes. This home didn't quite make net zero, but it is step 5. And we've been building to step 3 for about 4 years now. And initially, really all we had to do different to our process was we just added an HRV or an ERV to the system, and that got us over the top. And although that costs a bit more money up front, what it has done is it's reduced the amount of money we spend on callbacks. We have less issues with the houses since we started using an HRV. So you could argue there wasn't a whole lot of extra costs there. And then the other thing that I've learned over the last while is how important shape is. And on this house, when we started it, this was the original plan, and there was 19 corners in this house with a sun deck or a screened-in porch that was actually recessed into the house, and a fireplace that stuck out the end. And if you go to the next slide, please. And so what we did was we squared the house up, we moved the sun deck outside and put that covered area over it, and extended the front of the house a couple of feet so the fireplace was recessed inside again. And then we went from 19 quarters to 9 corners, which just makes the house easier and cheaper to build, but also it reduced the amount of exterior wall by 33 feet. Everybody's got their own idea what a cost per square foot of wall to build, but it definitely reduced cost just by doing those steps and increased the efficiency of the house. And as far as you can go to the next one. Yeah, so then the air tightness obviously is the big thing. And it makes such a difference. And we've played around with it now for, like I say, 5 years actually. We've got down to our average now is right around 1 air change per hour. And that's just on our step 3 houses. On our net zero houses, we're right around 0.6 of an air change. We do everything from the outside. Kind of like Nathan mentioned, we just do our air barrier on the outside and seal everything from there. And then we don't actually use a vapor barrier on the walls inside. We use a vapor barrier primer. But my crew now is sort of on it. And so we do it while we're building. We add the air barrier, we seal the top, leave the bottom open so that the walls can be inspected. And various things done with it. But it saves us time because when we're not going around with ladders after the fact, trying to put the house wrap up, trying to seal it, we do it all in place on the ground, and then we add our windows and doors and do the seal from there. And it would be between the savings in labor and the reduction in the vapor barrier. I would say that again, we are probably saving money by doing it this way as opposed to the way we used to do it. And it's really effective. Like I said, our numbers are really, really good. So we're super happy with that. One thing I would say for the people on this group to be aware of is, I don't think it happens too much in the north, but there are certain areas and jurisdictions where they have building bylaws requirements as far as the design ideas on houses that have to be. And you got to really pay attention to that. Sometimes those things adversely affect how a house will perform. And so just be really aware of that. If you're trying to get houses more efficient and then you add something like, well, we need an extra bump out or something on the house. Every time you do something like that, it affects the performance of the house. And so hopefully, we can sort of talk this through and work out ways that we can simplify those sorts of things. As far as getting the step code, it's really, step 3, it's really not a big deal. It's fairly simple. I think most of the concerns right now are fear-based, and most of it because builders haven't tried it yet. I think once they do, and once they learn to work with an energy advisor and pre-plan the house to sort of simplify things, simplify the design. We actually are planning to build a net zero house this summer. And I've worked with the clients who have been really good to work with and really adaptable. And it's about a 1,400 square foot net zero house that we're looking like we're gonna be able to build it for under $350,000. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Great. Thank you very much, Joe. Okay, that was great. We're gonna move on to the working with an energy advisor portion of things, but quickly, Mark Fisher had a question about air tightness, insulation, mechanical, etc. I haven't heard anything about the orientation of the house in relation to the sun. And does STEPCO discuss north-south orientation, window placement, etc.? So that is something that as you move into the higher steps is absolutely going to be a consideration. And it's one of those things that your energy advisor is going to take a look at when they're doing the energy model and say, you know, all of these north-facing windows, maybe not such a great idea, or why don't we have an overhang, or all of those sorts of things. Absolutely, it's something that an energy advisor will take into consideration. In the lower steps, is it as necessary to take that into consideration? Perhaps not. Maybe you can still have a bunch of north-facing windows and get to step 3, because as everybody here is kind of concurring, it's easy peasy lemon squeezy in general. So not much has to be changed in that way, but it is definitely taken into consideration within the energy model. So I mentioned the energy
Nathan's got
advisor
his-
capacity. Oh,
Sorry, Nathan's
sorry.
got his hand up, I think.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't put my question in the Q&A, but I just had a quick question for Joe about the air barrier going on the walls prior to them coming up. Have you had any flack from the building inspectors on not covering up the nails? Because here they want to see your walls nailed before they'll do your framing inspection and pass it.
Yeah, that has come up. We've kind of worked that out with our building inspectors, but I've had this with talks with other builders around, and all we're doing is sealing it at the top, and then, you know, tacking it just enough to hold it in place, and then try to get our framing inspection. We leave it so that you can lift that bottom part up, and they can have a look under it. Ours now do our inspection from the like they use pressure from the inside to make sure that everything is nailed, but they're not. I mean,
Right.
Worked with them long enough that they're not concerned about the fact that they don't measure the nail spacing. I know there's certain areas it's more difficult than others, for sure. It is a consideration.
Yeah, fair enough. Thanks.
Okay, so knowing that this is a learning curve for all aspects, that you can be building officials, builders, suppliers, everybody needs to take a look at those new ways of doing things and understand what's possible within the performance pathway. So energy advisor capacity in 2021, in the spring of when we started working on this in the north, that it came up again and again and again. At that time, Rod Kroom and his team were based in Prince George. Alison Conroy was also there in Prince George, and Angel Heinrich was in Fort St. John as the energy advisors, and there was a large gap. We know that energy advisors, they can do your energy model from anywhere. So if a builder wanted to hire someone from Vancouver Island or from Calgary, it's a national license and they're able to do that. But we always need that final inspection or final air tightness test rather by the energy advisor and have that blower door equipment there on site to do that test. We helped address that through talking to the building officials and staff in the north and saying, hey, how can we help? And as I mentioned, so we were able to get some blower door equipment for terrace. It's another thing that Dawson Creek is still considering. If there were other barriers that we could help your communities address, we're happy to have those discussions. Please get a hold of me. But since then, Rod Kroom has been really doing his part. He's been training a bunch of energy advisors. There's another contingent coming through next month, but now we have building energy advisors rather in Terrace. We have one in Smithers, one in Hazelton. Another one has come in Dawson Creek now, and Rob informs me that his next group that's coming through has one more person that's based in Prince George and another that's based in Williams Lake. So as expected, with signaling that change through step code, everybody knew it was coming at the end of 2022. People have stepped up to train. And actually during these webinar sessions, I've had a couple of people contact me and say, hey, how do I train to become an energy advisor? And are there any incentives available for that? So interest is available and growing in this career. If you builders who need to find an energy advisor, there's a directory on betterhomesbc.ca where you can find your EA, their name, their service area, and what they're qualified to do. So Rod, who has a lot of experience and qualifications, I think he can do just about every building on the planet. There's some others who are less qualified, but he might be able to work with someone. Maybe there's a new person working in Terrace that he'd be willing to say, hey, I've done this energy model. would you be able to go on site and do the blower door testing so I don't have to travel to Terrace? And those sorts of collaborations between energy advisors are a possibility. So just quickly, how do we go through the performance pathway process with an energy advisor? So to get that building permit, any of these municipalities that have adopted step code, first, the applicant needs to have an energy model for the home. And hopefully they've worked with their energy advisor to optimize that design. Maybe you don't need triple glazed windows. Maybe you can get away with double glaze and some more insulation somewhere else in the house and it's more economic. Your energy advisor can help you with that. But you get the energy model. They can then go as they're building. We talked about the importance of the mid-construction air tightness test that can show you where the mistakes are before everything's closed up and it's really expensive to fix those mistakes. You do it before the drywall's on. And then that final site inspection. So that's the final air tightness test by the energy advisor and checking that what was on the pre-construction form is matching up to be the model with the as-built form. And then the reporting and rebates. So the energy advisor is going to provide an as-built form for the jurisdiction. What is it? Authority having jurisdiction. Look into some rebates for the client and help coordinate that a bit. The building official is still going to need to do the final inspection, check that the windows are what they said they're supposed to be, the assemblies are what they said they're going to be, all those different things that is way out of my scope. But they still will have to do that, but they will be able to rely on that energy advisor's as-built report. Those, I'm going to just skip to one slide and go back, Rod. But this form on the left is that pre-construction form. It says on the top right, pre-construction. Those are available on the provincial website. And so to not reinvent the wheel and keep standardization across the province, it's really encouraged that all of the municipalities adopt these as their forms. They're available on the provincial website. When they're updated, it goes province-wide. These are what your municipality should be requiring from your energy advisors, the pre-construction and then the as-built. And then everybody's getting the same information. The builders that are working across communities always get to have the same information and we know what we're looking at. So I just wanted to go back to this slide, Rod. And if you wanted to just talk a little bit about what kind of information you're getting from your builders before you start a project.
Yeah, thanks, Gitan. Yeah, so initially the builders would supply the energy advisor with a PDF plan giving the orientation. As when we model the home, it's important to know which direction it faces because the program will calculate the solar heat gain, for example, for windows facing the sun. It'll also, we also need to input any ventilation that is going into the home, as well as the mechanical systems for heating, cooling, and the type of windows that the builder intends to put in the home.
Great, thank you. And I just wonder really quickly if we can go through this. This is an as-built form done for one of Bruce's projects, just to see what kind of information will be provided to the building officials.
Yeah, so this is a 3-page compliance report that is completed based again on the plans that we receive and the information from the builder. And I just want to mention too that this is a performance pathway. The step code is, and that would be different than what we have done in the past, which would be prescriptive. And prescriptive means that in our heating zone, we would need so much insulation in the walls, so much in the foundation and ceiling, etc. But the step code being performance-based, it gives the builder more flexibility. So the end result is that it needs to be a certain level of efficiency. But I know there's been lots of situations where that flexibility has ended up in saving the builder money and still achieving the still achieving the goal. Yeah, so we're just listing the envelope components, what's going in the wall, the nominal insulation, and then the effective insulation, and that would be taking into account all the thermal breaks that we have in the framing, for example. Also, what type of furnace or heating system is going into the home, as well as the method of hot water heating and the associated efficiencies of that equipment, and any other energy impacting features such as drain water heat recoveries, things like that.
Okay.
And then, based on the model, we calculate the metrics required to determine what step we're actually going to meet. So page 2 of this report, in this as-built report, indicates that, we've met step 3. That will be after the final blower door test, achieving less than 2.5 for step 3. So then the building official knows that, we've met the step 3, and with respect to the BC Energy Code, we're good to go for final occupancy.
Great, thank you. So we're quickly coming up to the end, and I just want to make sure that we have a chance to mention some upcoming in-person events, which is quite an exciting thing after the last couple of years of house arrest. Terry?
Yeah, and thank you very much, Katan. And you know what? Just when I was listening to this, I was thinking that, the BC Energy Step Code has created a lot of discussion about pathways to high performance homes. But I think it's also at the same time created a pathway to high performance and just communication in general between contractors, suppliers, lawmakers, building officials from all those different areas. And I know for folks that are online, you're just like me, you did not become a builder or an energy advisor the day after you were elected. So you don't automatically just know all these things. So I just wanted to put that out there. This is one of several of these sessions that Katan has led us through this week. And one of the things that keeps rising to the top is that when it comes to building a more energy efficient home, whether it's 20, 40, 80% or net zero, that it is absolutely crucial. The design stage, the planning, working with an energy advisor as soon as possible, and the communication between trades, suppliers. Joe had said earlier, when you bring your trades in and you're shooting for the stars, like maybe a step 4 or something, it really promotes a team effort and a sense of pride. A competitive edge in builders will come out and in the home building industry. It'll also mitigate confusion later on down the line, or a ball being dropped, ultimately saving the homeowner in the end time and money on their home or on a particular project. And so on the industry education day, half the day is going to be spent doing an independent design process, which is exactly that. It's bringing everybody together at the table to do that very thing that I just described. Then another thing that has really risen to the top, and oftentimes it's been building officials leading conversations in these sessions, talking about HRV versus ERV, different kinds of wall systems, air versus vapor barrier, and the importance and things to watch out for. So we're going to be able to continue that discussion for the second half of this workshop. And so we'll be able to continue these conversations with some high performance home builders in a panel format, just very relaxed, grab a cup of coffee after a lunch and just be able to talk about some of the different options to build a better home in the end, which builds better communities and more opportunity for our citizens in the end, which is really what we come to the table for. Then at the same time, can't be all business. And it's been, as Gatan said, we've been in COVID jail for a couple of years. And it's, while some of the world has slowed down, construction certainly has not in many areas, including throughout northern BC, definitely in Prince George. Our building department has been going hair straight back. So we needed time to just kick up our heels. I get to meet Gatan in person after working online together for over a year. And I bought new shoes. And so I would love to invite any mayors, councillors, folks from your building department to come down and celebrate the contribution of construction in our communities. As we know, is massive return on our investment when we support our construction sectors. It pays us back exponentially within our communities. It's a lot of sidewalks, right? So yeah, so I will put in the chat our website where you can register for either or both of these events. Thanks, Gatan.
Great, thank you, Terry. And that is an excellent segue, the getting everybody together to communicate and move things forward. I wonder, Rob, my colleague, if you can talk about the Northern Network of Networks.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. It's a pleasure. A few people on the call actually today were part of this very first meeting we had last Monday. I'll send an email out too, if it's okay, to everybody on this call with just a meeting summary from that meeting we had last week, and a bit more information about what it's all about. But basically what we're trying to do with it is to bring people together from across the North who are in local government, both staff and elected, Indigenous communities, education, healthcare, business, industry, to sort of share information and collaborate for the purposes of making progress kind of together. I'm from Prince George, lived here my whole life, and been involved with a lot of regional things over the years. And one of the things I really came to see in CEA, I've been here now about 6 months, is how individual communities and individual sectors like construction have some really amazing capacity and experience and expertise, but it's not always shared across the region and across sectors. And I started to see that I think people would really appreciate that. So we created this network to sort of almost like a support group in a sense, to bring people together. Had a first meeting last Monday, almost 90 registrations, great result. And we put together a bit of a summary of that meeting and some ideas on how to move forward. So I'll email that to all of you as well, so that you can hopefully see that maybe there's some opportunities within your daily time to participate in that as well.
Okay.
Thanks a lot,
very much,
Gatan.
Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are a little beyond when we said we were going to finish this thing. So I understand many of you have meetings and other things to get to. If you need to do that, those of you who'd like to stay on and continue the discussion for a few minutes, you're welcome to do so. A recording will be put up on the Building a Legacy North website, so you can check in with that later if you'd like, and direct any of your colleagues that weren't able to come to go check it out there later on as well.